Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Ancient Mysteries Unearthed. I'm your host, Chris Noble, and today's guest is Dr. Megan Wagner, a therapist, spiritual guide, author, and interfaith minister with over 40 years of experience in psycho-spiritual healing, initiation, and consciousness work. She's also the director of the Tree of Life Teachings International, creator of the Feminine Path of Power, and a teacher at the Nine Gates Mystery School, which of course is right up our alley here at Ancient Mysteries Unearthed. Now, she's also trained in deep psychology, Kabbalah, transpersonal counseling, and ancient mystery traditions. So Megan weaves together therapy, sacred ritual, inner alchemy, and sacred art. So many incredible modalities that we're going to be picking her brain about today in this episode. And this is really all she does to support profound healing and spiritual awakening. Through her teachings and global sacred journeys, she also guides others into deeper relationships with self, soul, and the divine. So without any further ado, let's welcome Megan to Ancient Mysteries Unearthed. How you doing, Megan?
Hi, Chris. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolute pleasure. You've got such an incredible array of background, of modalities, and I can't wait to talk to you about as many of them as we can today.
Okay.
But I would love to know, first of all, a bit more about your origin story. So how did you get to this pretty unique path of yours? What kind of started your journey?
Yeah, great question. Well, thanks for asking. I started out my life. I was raised in a Jewish household and, very culturally Jewish. But I was deeply, deeply spiritual, and people in my family weren't really into the spiritual aspect of things. And so I just had a profound awakening when I was 12 years old and started to move into the teachings of Yeshua and the teachings of Mary Magdalene. And then that got me also training to be a therapist. And I just got really interested in, what do the Western traditions say about healing, about emotional health? And so when I was 28, I actually moved to London and I found a Kabbalah teacher there. And it was through actually a vision that I had had when I was 24. And I had a vision of a ladder going up from earth into heaven. And there was an angelic figure at the top of this ladder. And there were people walking up and down the ladder. And it was very, very important that I understand what this ladder vision meant. And then suddenly it disappeared. And it took me about 4 years until I found my Kabbalah teacher. Like, what does this actually really mean? And I found out that it is came right from the Bible, right from the Hebrew tradition of Jacob's ladder. And so I realized that this vision I had had was a ladder of realization that anybody can travel on, anybody who's ready to develop their soul. And so that got me a window into Kabbalah. And I started studying it and realized that this was the tradition from the Western mystery traditions that really helped people to go through an initiation process and awaken. So that's how I started on this path. I also happened to come from a family where my mother was an artist. And so when I was a kid, I was super interested in art. And so I just was able to try so many different kinds of art mediums. And when I started studying Kabbalah, I really wanted to teach it in a way that was much more embodied, not intellectual. And so I had this another vision to create sacred robes. There's a few of them behind me here today. Some sacred robes that would really help people embody this awakening. And that started me on a whole journey into shamanism, drumming, ritual, and so much more.
Wow, I love that. And I'm looking at your background for our listening audience. I'm seeing a beautiful forest, it looks like. Is that a painting or a
Yeah,
poster?
it's a big mural on my consulting room because I love redwood trees, and of course I teach the tree of life, so it's really nice for me to have a forest of trees in here.
Oh, yeah, I want that. That's
Yeah,
beautiful.
yeah, it's really
And the robe fabrics for our listening audience too look absolutely stunning. You've got some really beautiful designs there. That's such an amazing, it's such a cool way to myself, I'm a musician, so I love to
yeah,
also incorporate the arts into the sciences and all these studies as
yes.
well. How have you found, Megan, that, your background with the arts has really helped yourself, but probably your clients and other people you've worked with these shamanic rituals.
That's right. As a therapist, as a talking therapist, I realize that talking therapy is great, but it only really takes you so far. And then in the ancient traditions, we used to have rituals, communal rituals, seasonal rituals. And so I really felt like it was important to bring in the sacred arts, drumming. I'm a ritual drummer. So drumming, chanting, and all the sacred arts. And I really feel that after therapy, when you go into communal ritual and open up to more shamanic states of mind, having shamanic journeys, getting lost in the trance of either movement or chanting, it really helps to shift material that can't shift in regular therapy. And that is why I love bringing people to different places around the world, but also to gather for ritual. Because once you're held in a safe space and you've got people around you that can facilitate you going through certain initiations, the sacred arts really helps, makes a big difference.
100%, 100%. And I wanted to circle back to the Kabbalah for a second,
Yeah.
because I think for our audience, we haven't had too many guests that are as well studied in this, and I'd love to learn a bit more. Could you just give us more of like an introduction as to the specifics? Like, I know Kabbalah's got an incredible, almost blueprint in a way, right, of the human's body, but spirit as well. Could you just, yeah, give us a little rundown of it?
Of course, yeah, and many people have probably seen the glyph of the tree of life. I'll just hold it up here. It's on my cover of my book. But the glyph of the tree looks like this. Okay, so there's a glyph, and it's on the back of the flower of life. So that glyph of the tree of life is a blueprint that just is superimposed inside the body. And it's a blueprint of our energy body, connecting the physical body to the emotional body and also the spirit body. And so if you start to study the tree of life and you understand how it works inside the body, you'll begin to see that it is an incredibly alive, dynamic inner tree. And it takes a little while to study it. My teacher told me it takes about 6 months to really learn the pathways and the spheres on the tree, but the rest of your life to apply it. So it is a path of initiation. It's a path of awakening that is a blueprint for us to be healthy in body, heart, mind, and spirit.
It's interesting. There's more modern day, let's say, modalities right now that are also speaking to these more ancient traditions and using them. So I've heard of things like human design, and the gene keys
Right.
are using what looks like the Kabbalah tree of life
Yeah,
blueprint.
that's
It's
right.
just it's incredible. So are you familiar with that? Like that fusion of those all together?
I am. I'm very interested in the gene keys, and really interested in human design. And I've been very struck by the fact that they use astrology, your birth date, they use the tree of life. And of course, astrology fits right on the tree. I'm also an astrologer, so it's really helpful to understand people's astrology and then to superimpose it on the tree. So these personality modalities are really helpful. Um, so yeah, you
And
you
and
can you can blend the gene keys and all of that.
100%. And so with your practice, as a therapist, how have
Yeah.
you found that helpful? Because myself personally, like I used to be super skeptical about everything, including astrology, and then came around to that because there's just too many coincidences or too many times where it's just so accurate. I couldn't get over it. And then learning about human design, I felt really helped me understand my energy capacities, and these different ways of explaining how we operate on a far beyond, like a multidimensional level.
Exactly.
So as I've applied that to my own shadow work and my own therapy, I found it exponentially profound and powerful. So how have you've weaved together all these really amazing modalities. So how do you work with people nowadays, and how
Mhm.
have you found that this multidimensional approach really helps?
Well, that's a great question. I love using lots of different modalities because I feel it's very helpful in the healing process. But if you just think about an organic tree, and this is what I teach and this is what I use with my clients, that an organic tree is very much like the human being. So we have roots that are connected to the earth, and that really speaks to how important it is that we get embodied and grounded. And that's all the work that I do in the roots of the tree with people. So that's like healing the inner child, really important things, and looking at rewiring some of those old trauma patterns. And so that's the root work. Then the trunk of the tree is really the individuation journey that Jung talks about, the hero's journey. And the trunk has to do with what you make of your life and how you stand in your power. And the trunk also helps people to understand what their mission and purpose is this lifetime. And then I talk about the branches. And the branches of the tree of life are reaching up. So they go up to the source of sky and air, and they're getting nourishment from these multi dimensions. So our branches, they connect in with multidimensional reality. And so when somebody is opening up their branches, they're opening up their third eye crown and all the chakras above to connect with their higher self, to see life from a much broader perspective, which gives people a lot of healing objectivity for what they're working with this lifetime. So the root work is very emotional, psychological. The trunk work I do with people is very much about their mission and purpose. And then the branches is teaching people some skills about how to connect with their higher self.
I love that. And I think that's really what we need in this new earth of ours that we're moving into is the multidimensional approach because we're multidimensional. So
Yeah, exactly,
makes
exactly.
a lot of logical sense to me.
Right.
Now, you mentioned earlier that you take people to these sacred sites as well that
Mhm.
have really profound energies. That's one of my deep passions. And the background I have for the podcast is when I was in Egypt in 2019.
Yeah.
And I have been obsessed with that ever since. So now, Ancient Mysteries on Earth, we take people as well too because of the profound, incredible things that you experience, as I know you understand at these sites. So, from your perspective, Megan, I would love to know what has made you want to bring people to these places, and what have you experienced, and where did you go
Oh my
specifically?
gosh. Yes. Well, I do travel a lot. I take about 3 to 5 international trips a year. I've always been a traveler, and what I love about it, it's so multifaceted when you travel, as you know. So, taking people out of their normal ego patterns, out of their normal home, and sort of thrusting them into an international travel adventure, it is the best opportunity for people to open, to grow, to let go of old stuff, and to come into their higher self. What I also find about traveling to sacred sites is that many people have past life experiences and they start to expand their understanding of themselves. They realize they're not just of this time, they're of all time. So I take people to Egypt because Egypt, as you know, is super powerful. I take people to Crete, which is an island, it's the biggest Greek island. It's about 250 miles north of Egypt, and they had a Minoan, ancient Minoan priestess tradition there that's even older than Egypt. So I take women there to awaken their spirituality and their snake priestess. I also take people to West Africa for drumming and dancing holidays there, also to Botswana and South Africa to do safari. I go to Morocco to take people to the sacred places there, all over Europe, in Ireland. I lived in London for 10 years. So from that base, I really traveled all over Europe because there's so many sacred places there. The Mary Magdalene sites in south of France, the Azores, which is very Atlantean. You might be interested in that because it really keys into Atlantis. Um, Gosh, I have been so many places. But
Yeah,
yeah.
that sounds really great. I mean, yeah, there's so many. There's just so
Mhm.
many amazing sites. Now, from your perspective, Megan, what do you think is happening here? Why is it that we have these incredible experiences specifically at these places? Because
Mhm.
we can obviously have, experience anywhere, but
Right.
why is it that when we go to Egypt, we go to, Glastonbury, or we go to
Right.
wherever it is? Why do we have these experiences?
Well, when you go to ancient places where the stones are still there, you can touch them. It's a power place. We know that, and that these temples were built in power places. That could be a vortex inside the land where ley lines come together. It could be that it's aligned with some star system. There's a lot of different reasons, but because of the resonance of those places, people have very powerful experiences, and it kind of opens up their molecules. You know how that probably was for you when you went to Egypt, and you're standing in these temples that have been there for thousands of years, and it has a resonance. Plus, in the past, we did lots of rituals, and we intentionally put in the information into the stones, into the crystals, into the temple walls, so that when we came back in the future, we would be able to feel the resonance of what we left there. So that's another reason people have powerful experiences.
Yeah, and it's like we knew back then what was going on. We
Yes.
understood the
Yeah.
cycles of the zodiac. We understood the
Mm.
cycles of consciousness,
That's right.
the ebb and flow. And we're just rediscovering that now. We're remembering it. With with that being said, what do you feel like we need to be moving into now as a species, as a collective, as a civilization, from your perspective as a therapist, on the health side of things, how do we need to be taking care of ourselves? And in another sense, like how do we need to be dealing with this multidimensional reality so that we can be living a more harmonious life and not falling into the chaos and into all the negativity that is currently, very prevalent on our planet?
Very important question. Well, I can tell you from doing therapy for 40 years that the one thing that everyone needs to do is to learn how to love themselves. And I mean, profoundly, because so many people have developed love, and they show lots of love to other people. But when you ask them really about are they loving themselves, they usually have a hard time. So for me personally, that is the territory of Divine Mother, because Divine Mother, I feel, is where what we need to channel through our own bodies and souls right now and hearts, because Divine Mother is coming back so fiercely and she is birthing through our hearts. And what she's about is unconditional love. And once you know how to get into the frequency in the heart chakra of unconditional love, and you know how to get into the tree of life, which is an energetic, what I call a toroidal field, when you step into the tree of life and you step into that river of light and love, it transforms your cells, it transforms your heart, it transforms your patterns, it transforms your thoughts. And for me, it's a combination of teaching people the tree of life and um, some simple meditation techniques, along with learning unconditional love, profound unconditional love. And when we can do it with ourselves, we can do it with everybody and everything. And I will add that it's not just self love, it's about inviting in Divine Mother that helps us to connect with all living things. Because when we recognize that we're in this beautiful paradise of earth and that we are connected to the animals, to the plants, to the trees, and to humans, and to the cosmos, it makes such a big difference because we stand in that flow of creation. And that, I believe, is how we're going to create harmony together. Because right now we're in the midst of a lot of very difficult, challenging negative energies. And we need to be in a harmonious frequency of love.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I remember many years ago when I was getting into therapy, like maybe my early 20s,
Mhm.
and I had a really hilarious moment with my therapist when he's like, "So, how are you with your friends?" I'm like, "Well, of course, I'm giving, I'm compassionate, I'll do anything for my friends or my
Yeah.
loved ones." "Yeah, that's great. Okay. And how do you talk to them?" "Of course, I talk to them very well and respectfully. Yeah, obviously." "All right,
Yeah.
Chris, how do you talk to yourself?" "Oh, oops."
Uh-huh.
And then,
Yep.
not so well. Not so
Exactly.
good, and that realization of, "Oh my goodness, I was such a not a great person to myself." And of course, we need that love first and foremost before we can give it to others. And it's that classic, oxygen mask. You got to put it on before you can help others, right?
That's right. Yeah.
So 100%, and I'm all about that. I also, when I was reading your bio, Megan, it mentioned that you're also teaching at the Nine Gates Mystery School.
Yeah,
What is, from your perspective, in this modern day, what is a mystery school like in 2026?
that's right. Yeah, a mystery school is a tradition that can hold a person through the awakening of all of their chakras. In Kabbalah, we call them energy centers, but many people know them as the chakras up the spine. And the initiation traditions is what all mystery schools are all about. And they're to provide a container with initiated elders that will awaken our base chakra, second chakra, third, fourth. Okay. So it's really about giving you a transformational pathway to awaken and to clear all the chakras of all the distorted energies that we carry, either from personal trauma, collective trauma, or the trauma that's in our culture. And so, a modern day mystery school, Nine Gates in particular, we take the students through these gates, these nine gates, through the chakra system, very similar to my own mystery school, my Tree of Life mystery school, which is to clear all the chakras and to come into right relationship to your true self and to your mission and to love.
Beautiful. And I get excited about that because I feel like I was in a ton of those back in the day, in
Yeah,
parallel or past lives for sure.
absolutely.
And I know many of us, our beautiful audience watching and listening certainly can resonate with that as well. Now, when we were talking about the ancient, the sacred sites, right? And you go to these sacred sites, and or you're at a mystery school. Sometimes the mystery schools will go to a location like a sacred site, though, right?
Yeah.
And have profound experiences. I would love to know. I've had some life-changing experiences in these temples, pyramids, locations around the world,
Mhm.
and I'm ever so grateful for them. I was curious, Megan, if you have any stories you'd be willing to share with us of any profound moments specifically at any of these sites that you've had, or just those classic awakening moments that you shared in the beginning. But if there was any others that you've experienced that you would like to share with today, specifically if they're at any of these sacred sites, would be interesting.
Yeah, well, I can share one in Egypt and then one in Crete.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so in Egypt, if any of you have been there, it's very, very powerful to go into the king's chamber, and they have a sarcophagus that you can get into, and it is really an alchemical sound chamber in there. And I'm a singer myself, and I do a lot of sound alchemy with my clients. And when we got in there and were able to get into the sarcophagus, and it happened to me because I was the first one in, and everyone was toning into me. And it was the most remarkable experience to feel the sound moving through my body. And I knew without a shadow of a doubt that I'd been there before, and that this is where Yeshua and Mary Magdalene had been to, and many others had been to go through a big initiation, opening their third eye and crown to be able to know their divine self. And that's what happened to me when I was there. And when I got out, we got to then sing for every single person going in. So I would say everybody had a profound sound alchemy experience of awakening in the King's Chamber. Another powerful temple that I take my women to in Crete, it's kind of a simple temple, and it's in ruins, but you can feel the energy there. And I can tell you that every single woman I brought into this little Lysos temple has had some kind of an awakening of their priestess self. And that's been remarkable because when women are together, of course, we get to do these really amazing rituals together. And it awakens something profound about the divine feminine I mean, of course, men can go there too and awaken the divine feminine within them. But it kind of depends on where people are in their life. But those are two really powerful experiences I can think of right now.
Absolutely, and it's amazing. You can go to a place that's in complete ruins and still have this magical experience,
Yeah.
and I definitely experienced that in South Africa at Adam's Calendar, and which is exactly in alignment with the Great Pyramid, and it was in a ruined state, but you walked into this small little stone circle
Mm.
enclave, and it felt like a bubble or a force field went over me, and my ears even got, like, softened, and it went, like, muffled almost,
Oh, yeah.
and you knew you're I mean, it was a physical sensation, you could feel like you're walking into a energy force field of some kind,
Oh,
and then
for sure.
and then we all spread out and had profound individual experiences, all 12 of us, and it was just all of us are crying, and we weren't even aware of it. It was just amazing full body, full mind, body, soul experiences, and so, yeah, these places are just absolutely incredible in the ruined state, which always makes me think, well, what be so fun to be back here when it was in its full functioning prime,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
especially the King's Chamber like you experienced, right?
Mhm.
What a sound chamber that is.
Yeah.
Now, do you have a bucket list or anywhere you haven't been yet that is somewhere that you know is pretty special you'd like to go sometime?
India is on my bucket list. There's always been a kind of stop inside of my soul, and then that stop came off a couple years ago, and now I'm absolutely ready to go there. Um, yeah, so that's probably the big thing on my bucket list.
India is incredible, and the Vedic texts are just one of the more amazing reads, the Bhagavad Gita and all those amazing, um, stories and myths of beings from all these other worlds, and,
Yeah,
of course, you go to India and you can see so many of those different sites are replicas of the Vimanas that were flying around,
yep.
and this construction is up there with Egypt in terms of its mystery of how in the heck did they do it? It's really powerful, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it
Now, Megan, now we'll turn it around a bit here for people in the podcast because I'm curious to get some as we were talking earlier, just about the current state of the planet right now, and people are a lot of people out there are definitely struggling with everything going on. What are
mhm,
some things that you found in your practice and working with your clients? Some sort of pragmatic, practical things that you have found, maybe let's say in an everyday life situation, can be really helpful for people moving through this challenging, chaotic time.
mhm. Yeah, that is a great question. I mean, because I'm constantly teaching the tree of life to my tree of life schools and to my clients, because they my clients come to me because they know I have a spiritual side to my therapy practice. And so, on a very practical level, I always encourage people to develop their heart chakra because that is where we hold our truth. It's where we develop this profound self love that I talked about. And it's also where we connect from our heart to everything around us. And that is a very practical exercise that you can do every day is just to wake up maybe once an hour. We always set our alarm for 12 noon every day and we just wake up. In Hebrew, we say Shema. Shema is to awaken. And so you wake up during the day and you, of course, remember your companions and you also connect to your heart and to come back to the truth. And then from here, another really practical exercise is just to shift up to your third eye or your higher self, which gives you a higher perspective on every single thing that's happening. And if you can shift right away, like something challenging is coming up or someone who's driving you crazy, is in your face, the best thing to do is to be in your heart, but also to be in your higher self, because you could say to yourself, I'm curious about this. I wonder why this is happening right now. Or what energy am I putting into this interaction that elicited this, right? You start to take more responsibility because of course we are the co-creators of every single thing that's happening to us, and the more responsibility we take in love, the more we can navigate in these energies. So that's what I find super practical.
And isn't so the heart chakra is the center chakra, is it not?
It
Right?
is.
So it kind of is the connecting
It is.
bridge of both worlds in a sense.
Yeah, it connects us to our physical body and our physical health and well-being and vitality, and it connects us to our higher selves that are in multi dimensions. Our eternal self is huge, it's divine. And we need to connect with it so that we can navigate better in these
Mhm.
energies.
Absolutely. And I'm fascinated with ancient Hebrew as a language. It's such a fascinating, it's up there with like Sanskrit for me, where it's just
Yeah.
really, really encoded. I know it's mathematically encoded.
Mhm.
Each letter has a numerical representation. I would
Mhm.
love to pick your brain on the one thing I kind of knew about the Hebrew language or learned about it recently, which blew my mind, was of course the word for God, which is Yahweh, right? And it's the Yahweh was is it's the Yah is the inhale, I believe, and Way is the exhale. So it's Yahweh, and kind of the breath of life, essentially. What a I profoundly scientific and beautiful way of explaining God in a way, in a word. Are there any other words in Hebrew that you like that are like that have some pretty profound layers of meaning to them?
For sure. I study mystical Hebrew, so it's a little bit different than studying regular Hebrew. But one of my closest friends is a Hebrew scholar. We studied Kabbalah together in London, and so we're now teaching some classes together. And he's a Hebrew scholar, so I've had more fun learning the mystical Hebrew. So actually, Yahweh is Yod He Vav He, and it means divine presence. And you're absolutely right that it's just through the breath, we inhale and exhale divine presence, recognizing that we are the divine presence. And what's interesting to me, because I've been studying the Yeshua, Mary Magdalene mysteries quite intensely over the last few years in Hebrew, and the word Yehoshua or Yeshua is a derivation of Yod He Vav He. So it's Yod He Vav Shin Ayin. And so when you start to play with the letters, this divine presence became Yehoshua, the awakened spirit body, which is you, which is me, which is everybody. So when you read the Hebrew and the mystical Hebrew, you really start to feel like all the metaphysics of how to awaken with the breath, with the body, with song. It's pretty down to earth and practical. Much more so than I ever imagined. So it is very fun to study mystical Hebrew.
Yeah, a lot of the ancient texts are oddly practical. It's funny. I think some of the in the Dead Sea Scrolls, when they found some of the Gospels of the Bible that had been omitted or
Mhm.
just lost, the Gospel of Thomas, I believe, was like Yeshua's idiot's guide to be living a healthy life or something. It was so practical, and
Right.
I could understand why if you're a ruling power that wants to control people, you take it out because it was far too empowering.
Yeah.
Obviously, you've done so much research with Yeshua, Mary Magdalene. Just, I would love to pick your brain a bit on that too. With the classic, obviously, everyone knows the story, but the story has been, let's say, altered or lost. A lot of the details throughout the thousands of years since they existed.
Yeah.
What is your general sense as to who they were, but what happened afterwards? Of course, there's rumors of maybe a bloodline, maybe they did have children. What's your perspective on them?
I'm interested in their actual being and personality, but I think it's gotten so much into the cult of personality that people miss what the deeper teachings are. And for me, the deeper teachings are that Mary Magdalene shows us how to become fully embodied in the physical body as a spiritual being. That's the divine feminine initiation, and that Yeshua represents the full awakening of our spirit body. Together, they were doing the sacred marriage, holding a field of transpersonal love that was huge. And they encourage us through their teachings and their modeling that we can do the same. And so that's really what I find so valuable about the teachings. Yeah, I'm sure they were married and had children. I mean, to be a rabbi, really, you needed to be married and have kids. I mean, that's pretty normal. Um, I think what happened afterwards was that they carried on the teachings, and that those teachings were held in the Essene community and the Cathars, the Kabbalists. These sacred marriage teachings went out, and they're still alive today. And they knew that these teachings would return at this time because we are in this ascension window where we are doing the sacred marriage and the polarity integration. So I think it's interesting if they had a bloodline, but I think that that's a red herring, and that actually takes us away from the internal guidance of how challenging it is to actually come fully into the body and fully awaken our spirit body. So I feel like that's the essential teachings that they're bringing us now.
Yeah, it's such a good point. I get caught up sometimes in the stories and the conspiracies that like my brain likes,
I
it's
know, I know. Me
interesting.
too. Yeah,
But you're absolutely right. It's really their and I mean Yeshua literally says this, like they're examples of what we all can be. They're avatars. They are
right.
a template, if you will, of what every human has the capacity to become.
Yeah, they are way showers for us. Let me show you. I have my robes here of Yeshua and Mary. I'm just going to show them to you because I have them
Beautiful.
right here. Okay.
Love it. That's great. For our listening audience, Megan's grabbing these beautiful robes that she has designed, and I'll try to describe them for our listening audience. Wow. Okay. This
Okay.
is
So
amazing.
this is Yeshua.
Wow, this is so cool. For all my fashionistas out there, this is some beautiful work here. Like, this is not just any kind of, this is beautiful. Wow, he's got his third eye there,
Yep.
looking great.
He's got one blue eye and one brown eye. And he told me when I was painting him, he said, I see humanity, I see all of humanity.
Wow,
He
that's
wanted me to know
beautiful.
that. Yeah.
Okay, Megan, I'm gonna have to grab one because I literally want to wear that on stage. So
Oh, I know, I know. And this is
that's
Mary
so
Magdalene.
cool. Oh, beautiful. So we got some gorgeous fire, looks like, coming out from behind her.
Yeah, she's on
Gorgeous.
fire with her veil of stars.
Wow, that's very cosmic and beautiful. Very, very beautiful.
So when I do travel with these robes, and these robes have been all over the world in temples in Egypt and all Israel, all over. But I just wanted to show you because when people get into these robes, they've been charged up by sacred sites
Ooh,
and
yeah, right.
they can heal you. I don't know how they work, but they are living beings that want to help humanity at this time. And when I
Mm.
first started doing the robes, they came in so fast. I was sketching and then it took me a while to execute all. I have 35 robes. So it took me a long time. But when you get 33 people, 35 people together in a circle, it's just super magical.
Wow. I can only imagine what that's like. You know, it's funny, we've forgotten so many of these parts of how we used to be in the past, and I think clothing was another, thing that we put so much time and consideration into the fabrics we were wearing and making sure that it's just even the material was medicinal and helpful and good for us, let alone the energy that we'd be imbuing into it, likely threading crystals and things into it as well.
Exactly.
What a different world.
Right, because when you put on a sacred robe, right, it changes. You go from the mundane into the sacred. And then if you meditate, I do a lot of drum journeys for people and they're in the robes and they go on these shamanic journeys. They connect with the spirit guide on the robe. And I am always totally amazed at what happens
Wow.
because they get exactly what they need, whether it's a healing or an insight or a physical healing. I mean, I just let them heal and it's amazing.
It's incredible. It reminds me, it's not a clothing experience, but it's just that it's an example of how energy and consciousness can be imbued into physical objects. And,
Yeah.
I think the term sometimes for that is called the talisman. It's
Mhm.
something that holds this memory in a sense. And I know I've had a couple of guests on that can touch objects and get a full download of what maybe you can, Megan. I'm not sure if that's
I can when I go to particular sacred sites.
right.
Like, yeah, when I was in Egypt, I put my forehead on the Saqqara pyramid, and just this entire library, like the Alexandrian library, just opened up, and I could see the whole thing. It was amazing. So usually for me, I have to be in sacred spaces, and then I'll get visions.
Oh, that's so cool. Did you see any did you get any downloads from that one?
Well, it continues to work on me because what I could see was a bunch of different scrolls. I could see Atlantean crystals. I could see people walking around the library getting scrolls out. I'm sure that I was a scribe in many lifetimes because I love libraries like that. Um,
Yeah, that's
but I think
fascinating.
what's happening is that I just kind of saw it, and then I'm asking in my meditation time to get the information that I need for my mission.
Fantastic. Wow.
Yeah.
And I've heard rumors that the, Library of Alexandria got kind of repositioned over to the, Vatican archives. So,
Oh yeah, I'd love to get my hands on
right?
the.
I was there a couple of years ago, and, it was interesting. I was there actually during Easter of all times. Not a good time to
Mhm.
go. It's really, really busy, but I could feel the energy from, I know how much stuff is going on underground in the Vatican, like just miles of archives and God knows what else.
Yeah.
And I could feel it there.
Oh yeah,
There's a lot.
definitely. Oh, yeah. But
Yeah.
I think those of us who are awakening our higher centers, we're able to get the information that we need right now. And I think that's really important because everybody has a third eye, everybody has a crown. And, I always tell people to remember to connect the two because you don't want to just see into the Akashic records and see everything. You want to hook it up with your crown, which is your divine blueprint, so that you're getting the information, the knowledge that you need for yourself.
Absolutely. I love that. So, we were talking a little bit earlier, you're mentioning the really interesting, and it's funny, I never really thought of this metaphor of the tree as a toroidal field.
Oh, yeah.
And I love the mathematics of like vortex mathematics, and obviously everything in a sense can come down to a toroidal field. I mean, our
Yeah.
bodies certainly
Yes.
do that, the planet, the galaxy, so
Right.
on. So with your work and your teachings, how have you started to come into awareness of this toroidal field? Because it seemed when you said it, there was it feels like you've had some experience with that kind of
I have, yeah.
knowledge.
It is an energy field that is around every living being. But the tree of life, I'm sure most people have seen a Celtic tree of life where the branches come around and they meet the roots. And that is a perfect description of the tree of life. That when we draw energy up from the earth and we bring it up and around like a fountain of light, and we draw energy from the stars down, then we're creating a toroidal field that has motion coming down this way and also going up our central channel. And this creates a powerful vortex of energy of awakening inside the human body. And if we can learn to hold the frequency and quiet the mind, which is probably the most important thing, and open the heart, then there is a huge regeneration that happens when you can really start to get inside your toroidal field. And I've been practicing this nightly in my meditations, and I've been getting really incredible results because when I can quiet my mind, I can then go travel to the palace of love, or I can go travel wherever I want to go in the astral spiritual realms. But it's also helping me to regenerate my cells in the here and now. And that I find really fascinating. That this toroidal field, once you consciously connect with it, it will regenerate your cells.
Wow, I that's amazing because I was just rewatching an old episode, on our channel that we did on the legend of Tartaria, and this, whole legend, regardless if it's true or not, it was some of the fascinating technologies that they supposedly, were using. One of them was what we think of as a fireplace was actually being used to create essentially like a toroidal field inside the house to regulate everyone's bodies, cellular systems, so that they wouldn't even need to go to the bathroom
Mhm.
and they would never need to heat or cool a place because it would always equalize or equilibrate the situation somehow using this toroidal field 0 point, kind
Mhm.
of bringing the place into a 0 point field. I mean, and then using, I think, the, cone sort of funneling technology of these spires that shoot out of buildings. Anyway,
Yeah.
it's just another example potentially there of how we've known about this so
Yeah.
many times.
Yeah. The thing is that we've got to learn how to quiet the mind, and we have to learn how to let go of all of our ego identities. Because if we've got any friction in our system, and if our ego is still wounded, or our inner child's still wounded, or we've got, stories that we tell ourselves,
Hmm.
you can't create the toroidal field in the way you need to. So I just always urge people, connect with your higher self, be in love with yourself, and let go of all those old stories because then you have less friction inside and you can really get this energy moving.
Mm, absolutely. And on that note, when you're talking about this, of course, our heart is such an important player in this whole
Mm.
situation. And if recently or not so recently, maybe we learned that we have three brains now. We got the brain, the
Mhm.
heart brain, and the gut brain, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And what do you think about that in terms of now, in a sense, almost leading our thoughts with our heart, in a sense?
Exactly.
Is
Yeah.
that the way of the future, so to speak?
Definitely the way of the future. Yeah. We've just been way overemphasizing our intellect and, the intellect is great. It's just that it's the servant of the heart. And, I'm just learning, because I came from a super intellectual family. And so I've spent a lot of years trying to get back down into my heart. So we can, of course, connect in with the heart. But one of the practices that I use is actually with my robes and the beings on the robes, let's say. I use, because I have a whole card deck of my robes, and it's really amazing to take these cards. I mean, these are the cards of all the different all the different frequencies that are on these robes. And I literally place the cards on the different parts of my body, because every one of the robes images, every one of these spirit beings fits in a different place on the human body. And you can actually utilize these in different places in the body to get information. So you can put it in your heart. You could put one on your third eye. You can lie down. I mean, it's very practical. Or you can put it on your heart and just invite the image of that being into different parts of your body, and you can get information. And that, to me, that this is a more heart-centered way of living, that we have information that wants to awaken within us. And the heart is always the go-to place, because it's the part inside of our system that coordinates all of our sub-personalities. It coordinates all of our healing. It holds our mission and purpose. So the trick is to get out of the head and into the heart.
Yes, and for a lot of those intellectuals out there, I'm sure many watching this show, I know it's tough, and, coming from a family of academics myself and a bunch of atheists and just
Yep.
highly, highly intelligent, skeptical people,
Mhm.
it can be really challenging, but there are many, many techniques, of course, out there. What have you found, Megan, helps you get out of your head? I know for myself, music, breath work, things like that can really help.
Yeah, for sure, music. I'm really, because I'm a ritual drummer, I djembe, I play the djembe, which is a West African instrument, but I also play, hoop drum. And for me personally, I just love the drum because it changes my brain waves so quickly, and it gets me out of my left mind. And I can get into the rhythm, I can feel it in my body. So for me, that is the quickest way to get out of my head.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Einstein had a violin. He was a violinist, so he liked to oscillate from right brain to left brain when he was, working on his formulas and stuff.
So important.
Great way to do it, I think.
Yeah.
I love that. I absolutely love that. As we're kind of coming towards the end of our episode here, I would love to know, just in a general sense, Megan, what do you feel that our audience might need to hear right now in terms of where we're at as a species and where we're moving to as a collective? It can be a challenging road, a challenging journey. And at the same time, I can't help but feel that we're moving into a really exciting future. It's just not quite visible yet, perhaps, for some.
Right, yes, because what most people are feeling is the chaos of the collective, and, peeling back some shadow things that we haven't looked at for a while, and now we're face to face with all the shadow in our country and in our world. And so it really means that the opportunity right now is to really increase your spiritual practice, moving vertically, because if you calibrate horizontally to all the negative frequencies out there, it's not very helpful. So calibrating to your higher self, calibrating to love, calibrating to light and consciousness, not in a way to bypass, because we can't put our head in the sand. But I'm finding that in the chaos, that I'm finding it's even easier actually to connect up with my higher self. So the frequencies are here for people who have good practices that they can actually key into and connect with God, goddess, higher self. Um, but I have so much hope for what we're going through, because I know, I can feel, because I'm a blueprint holder of the divine blueprint. I know that is becoming more available to us, even in these energies. So the trick is to not connect with the negative frequencies, to see it, to love people, to do whatever we can to, stop the bad things happening, but to really stay centered inside of ourself and connected to love, because we're here as beings to create coherent fields of love. And so as we do our inner work diligently, and then together we do the work, we're putting out these amazing coherent fields of love so that people can start to entrain to love rather than to not love. So I am super hopeful. I mean, I'm a hopeful person anyway, but I have a lot of hope because we've got a lot of help from the spirit guides as well. And that's partly why I felt so much urgency to create these robes so that I could actually get people into them and they can start to get into these higher frequencies. And to start experiencing that rather than calibrating to the frequencies out there.
I love what you said there, Megan, and especially with, in training to love, I write a lot of music that's got binaural beats, so it's literally trying to entrain your brain to
Mhm.
a brainwave state of relaxation or whatever, but that applies to anything, of course. It's to entrain. So, for our audience listening, if you're like, what the heck's he talking about? What I mean is, if you've got that classic example of there's pendulums and you got the different pendulums going at all these different speeds and whatnot, if you get them together in the same room, all pendulums eventually synchronize and they all entrain and go together. We don't know exactly how that works, but
Well, but that's our big experiment now. Like, how do we
exactly.
love each other so that we entrain in love and we can do great things together? I'm all about community. I just think we need to gather in conscious community and be love, because then we can create a huge field of coherent love.
100%. I mean, we're phenomenal beings, certainly on our own, but we're much more powerful together as a organism, working together, right?
And we forget that we have all of these light beings in spirit that are helping us to ascend. I mean, this is the ascension window. It has opened. We're in it, and we cannot get fooled by the doom and gloom out there because the ascension window is open for us. And so we need to step through and be the beings of light that we are.
100%, and lead by example. I think that's really what we're here to do, and I'm looking forward to it. I know it's crazy, but I've heard some a really nice saying recently where it's like we can be in the eye of the storm, meaning we can be surrounded by all this chaos and still have quite a calm experience in the center.
Absolutely. And that's why I like the toroidal field image of the tree of life, because when I stand in that, there is huge movement and total stillness all at the same time.
Mm.
I feel really together, but I know I have all this energy moving in my system. So it's a powerful thing to be in that 0 point, but also to be in the energetics of that at the same time.
I love it, Megan. Thank you so much for all your wisdom today. Where can people connect with you and perhaps get your books, maybe these robes? I don't know if they're for sale though, but I want one.
I know the robes, yeah, the robes that I have in the set aren't for sale, but I do
I
have
figured.
scarves. So I make scarves, that are much easier to wear. But you can go to my website at meganwagner.com, and then you'll see there's a whole section on sacred robes. There's a section on Tree of Life and the trainings that I do. There's a whole section on the divine feminine and a whole section on the sacred travel.
Beautiful. Amazing. Well, Dr. Megan Wagner, thank you so much for being on Ancient Mysteries on Earth. Really appreciate you.
Well, thank you so much. It's been really great. Thanks, Chris.
Absolutely. Well, that, as always, fascinating episode. My brain's got lots to digest in the best way. Dr. Megan Wagner is an incredible resource of information. So if you guys have resonated with her and her work, please check the show notes below, get her information and connect with her. Maybe you got to go to a sacred site tour with her because my gosh, she really covers some pretty amazing ground. I want to go. Sounds great. So anyway, thank you so much, everybody, for tuning into this episode of Ancient Mysteries on Earth. As always, thank you to our sponsor, the Therapeutic Music Library, providing therapeutic music for practitioners, therapists, and facilitators who want to use it professionally in their practice and use it with royalty-free, legally sound situations. So you don't have to think about it. This library helps you out in that sense. So check out the description below. And also reminding everybody that Ancient Mysteries on Earth is going to be in Egypt in 2026 in September. And for our sacred site tour, check the description below if you want to join us in Egypt for a magical journey. And then 2027, we're going to be likely doing a trip in Italy for the ancient giants of Sardinia and the inner earth connections of Mount Etna. So lots of fun stuff in the pipeline. As always, most importantly, Much, much, much love to you all. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next episode of Ancient Mysteries Unearthed. Until next time.